I listen to Afrikaans music so dan en wan. And in the one song he says, op die blauwpunt radio. The blauwpunt radio. Is dit, sê ek het reg? Nee. Blauw? Blauwpand. Pank. Bankt. Blauwpankt. Who had a radio like that? Het julle radios is dit gehad? Where you have to tune it. You have to tune it and you turn the aerial. And you find signal. For the young people, we won't know that. I grew up where we had to search for the signal on DSTV as well. And you have to hold the ears and I hold it like that. So we have this radio, we have to, it doesn't look like this. No, not like this. So I just used it as an example. Is it so? Like I said. So I want to preach about a Jesus frequency. Now, get the idea of this radio. And when you have this radio, like on the farm, we used to have this die draadloos radio, where you have to tune it to find a frequency. Now, today's cars and stuff, you just press a little button and it searches everything for you. But on those radios, you have to sit there and then tune it until you find the station you want to listen to. And then whatever you want to listen to. So, today I want to embark on a journey or a quest to see what was this station that Jesus was turned into. He walked on earth, but he had a certain frequency which he tuned into to listen to and say, this is how I hear things. This is how I see things. Very important, see. So the frequency I want to use today is not how he listened, how he saw. So just adjust it. How did Jesus look at the world? Now, obviously, there's many perspectives, many different perspectives on how he looked at the world and how it differs. But seeing is becoming. Some say you are what you eat. I can't remember eating a piece of steel. Some say you are what you eat. Some say you are what you see. Because what you see, you become. You mimic what you see. Now think about a child. A child, how many times do you tell your children, moenie doen wat ek doen nie, doen wat ek sê. Don't do what I do, just do what I say or tell you to do. However, we mimic behavior. We see what our dads do and our mothers do, and we copy that and we become that. So, interesting few quotes, just two quotes. William Shakespeare wrote that the eyes are the window to the soul. He was obviously a hopeless romantic. Eyes are silent messengers of the heart. That was an unknown quote. But you can see so much in people's eyes when you look at people. Your eyes portray a lot of things. There's even like studies showing that how you can see when someone lies, where they look, how they look, and where exactly they are. So in people's eyes, you see a lot of things. Now, I think we have trained our eyes to see a lot of things, but we are experts in seeing wrong. In South Africa, we are experts. We are experts in seeing all the problems. When we go to a braai, when we are anywhere we are, we know and we see every single thing that goes wrong. I wrote in Afrikaans, ons sien moeilikheid permanent. Ons oefen dit daagliks. In English, we see sin and trouble and mistakes because we've learned and trained to recognize it every day. Consciously, subconsciously, what do? We look to see what we can see. And what we see negativity. And we bombarded with it. And the news love it. The news thrive on it. They want sensation. Now, once I heard a podcast where the guy said, if you see the news, maybe you should start listening and seeing what they don't want you to see. Because they may be telling you something that you're actually not supposed, just to take your eyes away from it. So, our eyes have trained to look in a certain way, and it's consciously and subconsciously. Now, what I want to do today is, can we adjust our eyes? Now, I'm preaching on this to tune into Jesus, to look how Jesus looked, because one of the symbols we want as our congregation, as habits, is eyes. Because the eye is so important. Because what you constantly see, you become. It's not what you eat, you become. It's what you see. It's how you look, you become. If you look at people in a certain way, you will certainly become and treat them that way. This week I saw a documentary on the SS, the special guards of Hitler, and how they are indoctrinated from children. Do you know that there were SS schools for women who got married to the soldiers? Skole vir vrouens to become wives of the SS soldiers, where they teach them and tell them this anti-Semitism, hierdie haat die Jode. And it was taught in World War II because they trained them from young to look in a certain way, look at people, look at ethnicity, look at things in a certain way, and then somehow then you become that. So there's many texts. I will touch on some of the texts, but there's one I want to look at this morning, especially of Zacchaeus, the tax collector, in Luke 19. So what's interesting is Luke enters a crowd of people. Jesus enters a crowd of people. Now, as Jesus enters Jericho and he's passing through, a man was there with the name of Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus. Ek weet nie wat is Engels nie. Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector. Keyword, a chief tax collector. Not a normal tax collector, one of the big tax collectors. He was wealthy. He wanted to see Jesus. But because he was short, he could not see over the crowd. So obviously he didn't need to see Jesus. He wanted to see Jesus. Because he wanted to see Jesus, so he ran ahead and he climbed a sycamore fig tree. Now, a fig tree is almost always in the New Testament used as a symbol of faith. Die vrye boom is altyd 'n simbool van geloof, van faith. So it's this that it happened, yes, but it's also this idea that he wants to see his faith. So he runs to this fig tree because he wants, soos die vrye boom vrugte dra en Jesus vervloek die vrye boom. He criticizes the fig tree. Why? Because of their faith. So now you get Zacchaeus, who wants to see Jesus, running to his faith tree. I want to see with the Spirit. I want to see Jesus. Since Jesus was coming that way. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, now Jesus, looking at Zacchaeus. So what's interesting and what caught me about this text is, so Jesus walks into a crowd, imagine like DHL Stadium, where the Stormers always wins, and you walk there and there's a lot of people. And when there's a lot of people, you notice one. Why would you notice one? Probably because he's higher, or maybe because he knew he will look at him. So Jesus looks at Zacchaeus, and he says to him, come down immediately. I must stay at your house. Now I wonder how the crowd looked at Zacchaeus. If the crowd was there, and there's a lot of believers, kom ons sê kerkmense, church people are there, following Jesus, standing around Jesus. The Pharisees are there, the Sadducees are there, the ones who say we are believers, we are church people, we do the laws, we wear the prayer robes, we do all the things. How would they look? They would look at Zacchaeus and say, this is not your place. Because now you're not looking at the broken and the poor and the ill and the ones with leprosy. Now you're looking at Zacchaeus, who is a corrupt, wealthy person. There's no place for him in the kingdom of God. He will destroy it. He will steal everything. He's unethical, dishonest. But Jesus says to Zacchaeus, I want to come to you. I want to come to you. I see you, Zacchaeus. He came down at once and welcomed him gladly. Now, that was like a big boundary that you would overstay. Like today, it's a boundary to cross when you eat at someone's house. But in those days, when you would eat with someone, you would associate with someone. So it's almost like political parties. If you would eat with them, you would join them. So becoming a MK or EFF or whatever party, when you eat with them, you become like them. You are part of them. And Jesus eats with him. Now, obviously, they won't like it. All the people saw this and began to mutter, He has gone to be a guest of a sinner. Hy's 'n sondaar. But Zacchaeus stood up and he said to the Lord, Look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor. And if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount. And Jesus said to him, Today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a son of Abraham. Obviously, Zacchaeus was a Jew, because the Jews were tax collectors, and now he says he's part of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek, look for. John 3:16, ek het gekom om te soek. He came to seek and to save the lost. Just some background on the text. So Rome's tax system, how it worked was Rome used local people, they used Jews, and these Jews would collect taxes. Now obviously when they collect taxes, they would collect 3 or 4 times more than what they should. So imagine each time you cross a certain area in Cape Town, you would drive through Blauberg, and when you enter Blauberg, there would be a toll gate, and there would be a guy from South Africa, let's say a South African, and he would be part of the government, standing there, and then the toll fee would be 10 Rand, and he would say 50 Rand. And you wouldn't have a choice, you would have to pay it. So that's how these people worked. So obviously they didn't like them because they're Jews, meaning they're believers, hulle is kerkmense, they're faithful people, but they belong to the Romans. So we know that, there's a fixed amount and they collected more. Herod Antipas was a client king under Rome. He ruled Galilee and Perea. He also employed tax collectors who were similarly exploitive. And the last one, public perception. Jewish tax collectors were viewed as traitors and sinners, often lumped together with prostitutes in societal judgment. There, I said Rome required a fixed amount, and then they took almost 3 or 4 times what they should have taken from people. So this guy is, he's actually someone you wouldn't mingle with. He's not someone. Why does Jesus then look at him differently? And is this the only and the first time that Jesus looks at someone and says, well, I will treat him differently? And I wondered, this text doesn't say a lot. There should have been a lot more things going on. I mean, there's Zacchaeus, short. There's a lot of people. There's disciples. There's Sadducees. There's Pharisees. All of these people, how did they look? Why did Jesus look differently? Because when Jesus looks, he looks at the world differently, intentionally differently. There's a word in Greek called splagnitzomai, and it's used 12 times in the New Testament. This is a word that says that Jesus looked and he was moved with compassion. And it happens 12 times in the in the Gospels. He doesn't just look. When he sees, his internal organs turn around. So the Greek word refers to the bowels, because they believe the heart wasn't here. The heart was in the stomach, in the bowels. So Jesus looks and he is moved with compassion. I've got a few texts there. You can maybe look at the sermon later and see some of the text. But just for instance, Matthew, Jesus sees the crowds and has compassion. He recognizes they are harassed and helpless. Matthew 14, Jesus sees a great multitude and he's moved with compassion. Matthew 15, Jesus calls his disciple expressing compassion. Matthew 18, the master's unforgiving servant and is moved with compassion. Matthew 20, Jesus and compassion. When you go to the Gospel of Mark, Jesus is moved with compassion and he reaches out. Jesus sees a large crowd and has compassion. How much compassion do you have? How do you look at this world? With compassion? Or are you so hurt that you've decided that you want to look at this world and hurt the world. Because that's where many of us are. Ek het so seer gekry, ek wil net seer maak. I've got so much pain, I just want to hurt. There's more text in Mark. Jesus was moved with compassion, reaches out. Jesus in Luke, there's one, Jesus sees a widow whose son has died, and he has compassion for her. This is why we want to make eyes part of our congregation's habits. We need to look differently at things and at people. So what was interesting when you read these texts is when they say splag niet so maar, Jesus sees and he is moved with compassion. He sees and he's immediately moved. How many of you look at people and you are moved by their pain and their sorrow? Or do we just look and say, ach, shame, and we continue? How many times do you look at someone and say, wow, really empathy, love, and mercy? Then in the end it says, this pattern underscores a deep connection between feeling compassion and expressing it through tangible acts of love and of mercy. Of love and of mercy. How do you see? How do you look? How do you look at your wife? You've been married how long? We've celebrated these marriages 12 years, 15 years, 20 years. We're so used to one another. We're so used to everyone. How do you look at your colleagues? You go to work, tomorrow's school, you're going back to school. How do you look at them? Oh. Going back to school. Oh. Going back to my wife. Oh. How do you look at your children? How does your children look at you? So I thought about this accident scene. I drove past one yesterday, and I thought about it. It's actually terrible that we've got a radio station or radio, and the radio then tells you which roads to avoid because people died there. It's terrible. You need to get to your meeting, so make sure you miss this accident where people died and children are maybe killed. Make sure you miss this so you can be on time, because it's important to be on time. However, your neighbor could have been killed there. But make sure that you listen to miss that accident. So when you drive past an accident, what do you see? Are you moved? So I'll share something very personal. I once drove a motorcycle, a Harley Davidson, baie beter Jaco as wat julle ry, is baie beter. A Harley has that tassels, you know that tassels on the side. So that is to show whether we're going forward or backwards. That's how fast it is. So we were in a accident, and they killed a guy right next to me, behind me, whilst driving. It was in up north. They threw a body bag over the person, and we sat next to the road, and we have to wait. We have to wait for the police and the reports. And so you're sitting there, someone is just killed. And it was so interesting looking at what happens around you. Most people drive around you, and what they do is they do this. Especially the women, they close their eyes. They don't want to see. They don't want to see. They tell children not to look. Terrible accident. You see a lot of bad things. But then there were other motorcyclists, different, all of them. And not one motorcyclist passed us. They all stopped. Every single motorcyclist stopped. And he stopped, and he got off his bike, and most of them took off their helmets, came sit next to us, said, "What happened?" And we said, "Well, this is what happened." And they touched us, and they said, "Sorry." They were moved with compassion of a fellow biker falling and dying. And I thought, wow, is this the community that exists? This is the community we judge most of the times. Oh, hierdie motorfietsryers. Yes, they don't do the law always correctly. But it was so amazing being part of this community and seeing the compassion with one another. They don't know us. They don't care what color we are or what language we speak or where do we come from. We're part of their community. We're part of the bikers there. They don't care if we drive the slow Harleys and they drive the super bikes. They don't care. They were moved with compassion. Imagine that is Christianity. Imagine if that is us. If we see a fellow Christian, but let's take it further. We see a non-believer, like the barmhartige Samaritaan. When you see someone who's broken and battered and he got robbed and he is moved and the church people walk past, but the Samaritaan that was hurt, the one that's least likely, he stops. He takes off his oil, his money. He takes this guy, puts him on his donkey, takes him and he helps him. Moved with compassion. Is your compassion dead? Our compassion has died. And we are trained to kill our compassion. Because we watch the news, we watch TV, we watch social media. And what do we see? We see land grabs, we see racism, we see corruption, and all we are trained to do is not have compassion. Now I want to challenge you this morning, if you tune into the frequency of Jesus, you're tuning in and you're tuning your eyes, saying, how do I look? What do I see? It is so important in the Bible to look differently. In Revelation 3, he says, I counsel you to buy from me gold that is refined in fire, so you can become rich, and white clothes to wear, so that you can cover your shameful nakedness, and salve to put on your eyes, so you can see. Salve, hulle het oogsalf gekoop. Oogsalf was baie duur, was very rare, and remember they lived in the desert, so obviously your eyes got damaged a lot by the sun and the wind and the sand. But they've got an eye cream. Those whom I love, I rebuke and discipline. So be earnest. There is eye cream for you. There is eye cream for you. So Jesus didn't just look at people. He was moved with compassion when he looked at people, when he looked at the world. When he looked at the world, he was moved with compassion. But more than that, in Corinthians he said that Jesus didn't only look at that. Jesus said that, and Paul says that, do not even look at people with compassion. Look at this world further. Look at this world to say that, so we fix our eyes not on what is seen here, but on what is unseen. Since what we see is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. Isn't that faith? If we tend to look at every single thing every day, we will hate our life. We will hate this life. But if we take in Jesus, if we tune the frequency and we say, but what if I look at the unseen things? Maybe I will live with hope. It's a challenge, and it's an awesome, grateful experience having children. But you have to teach them things. And then when you teach them, you realize, oh, we're all the same. Adults, children, we're all the same. Because the two sisters fight a lot. And then I have to tell them, what if you are all you have? You have to look further than fighting over this little piece of block or thing to play with. Met hierdie klein poppie. Ek wil hom sommer by die ruit uitgooi. Wil die ruit aftrek en hom net uitgooi. Just want to throw it out and say stop. Because you're so caught up in this little fight now that you're destroying your relationship. And you all you have. When mom and dad is gone, the two sisters, it's all you have. And when I tell them that in the car this week, I thought that is what life is about. We get so fixated on that little moment that it takes over our entire life. We come to a restaurant and they serve the bad food and it ruins our experience. We fight about the little things. Now I wonder, Jesus never thought about little things because his eyes were fixed on the unseen. This morning I want to challenge you and say, what do you see? Do you see only your bank account? Do you see only the news? Do you see only the things going on? When you come to church, do you only see everything that's wrong? You know, you can come to church and you can see a lot of things that are wrong. Die dominee is nie voorberei nie, die klank is nie lekker nie, die dit, die dat. You can see all of those things. You can go into the world and you can see those things. You can go into your work tomorrow and you can see those things. Go to your work tomorrow. Ek weet sy gaan dit doen. I know, I'm going to look for it. She's going to do that. I told you she did that. Is that what Jesus made us for? To look at the world like that? Or was he moved by compassion, like the motorcyclists? The ones who stopped, who saw an accident scene and saw a motorbike and said, I'll stop now. Whatever appointment I have is not as important as the life of a fellow biker that's lost. I'll stop and I'll take a moment and I'll be moved with compassion. I want to end with this. That is the way God looks at you. You can't look at people that way when you look at yourself with hard eyes. God looks at you with soft eyes. He doesn't look at you and say, alweer jy. Every time you pray, alweer, jy wil alweer. When God sees you, He's moved with compassion. And may you discover in your quiet time and in your life that God looks at you. He looks at your rage. He looks at your anger. And He looks with compassion. Take that and use it to look to the world.